It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're going to have a roll call vote.
Blackburn,
Aye.
Hageman, Hedge,
Here.
Howard,
Present.
Jones,
Here.
Craybill,
Here.
Mashigian.
Here.
You have a quorum of 6.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Do I,
I would move to approve the agenda.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the regular council meeting minutes from August 28th, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
The meeting minutes from August.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the president's communication. Once in a while, when there's a big topic in the community that we know needs to be addressed, I like to address that. So I'd like to take a minute to address the concern that's in the community. A homeowner recently removed some vegetation on his property, and there has been quite a reaction to that. We agree that it's very shocking when you drive by the property, but I wanted to add some facts to the discussion as well as what steps are being taken to remedy the situation. For those of you that are not aware, on August 30th, our village manager was alerted to tree removal work that was being done by a homeowner on Bristol Lane. The village manager was on site as soon as possible and ordered the work to stop. Over the past couple of weeks, our village manager has done extensive work to investigate. He discovered 15 regulation-sized stumps, of which some may have been dead or diseased. He discovered that the vast majority of the stumps were smaller than the regulated size as listed in the village ordinance, and photos from Google Maps reveal that much of the area in question was covered in buckthorn. Buckthorn is an invasive species. The state of Michigan and environmental experts encourage buckthorn's complete removal because of its aggressive growth. It overwhelms and chokes out native plants. The village ordinance does allow homeowners to remove 3 regulated trees within a 2-year time period without obtaining a tree removal permit. Of the 15 trees, minus 3, a total of 12 trees were removed in violation of our ordinance. Since August 30th, the village manager has met with the homeowner 3 times. The homeowner has been very compliant and is upset by the stress that's been caused to the village. He understands that the ordinance was violated and a civil infraction and fines will be enforced. Planting new trees was part of the homeowner's plan from the beginning, so he has met with our village manager to submit a proper tree replacement plan. The plan includes 36 5-foot trees that will grow approximately 3 to 5 feet per year. The plan is to space 24 of them across the 120 feet of his property near the road, and the other 12 will be spaced across a 60-foot gap on the north side of the property. The bottom line is that 36 new trees will be planted to replace the 12 that were removed in violation of the ordinance. And there are more than 30 healthy, mature trees that were left standing. We are continuing to work with the homeowner as work progresses on the property. He does plan to rebuild on the location of the previous home. I would encourage any resident who is concerned with the issue, or any issue really, to please call the office before approaching a homeowner or engaging in rumors. The office staff is available to share any and all information with residents and welcomes the interaction. This is an unfortunate situation. The village does its best to educate property owners of our ordinances, but it's impossible to stop every violation. When a violation occurs, the village takes action. We have a strong tree ordinance, and we intend to continue to enforce that to preserve the natural beauty of Bingham Farms that we all enjoy. So, that's what we know now. And so I wanted to put that information out there, and I feel like it's good because we're gonna go to public comment next, and I know we have a couple of people that would like to speak on that. We have, I don't know who wants to go first. I'm opening for public comment, by the way, that are not on the published agendas. Would you like to go first?
Mike Deroni, 23-100 Sager Court. And yes, a lot of what you talked about is in this, and I'll pass those around. There's more than what's needed there. But I think, like you said, there's a lot of information that is out there, and awareness and understanding of what occurred. But the big part of what's in this packet is what tells me is the village cares about the trees and everything in our village. And I think in the petition on the front, there's a lot of details. There's history. There's what you just said about some of the story. Some of it may or may not have been interpreted and changed, could be updated from what you had said, but those details aren't the underlying important part. It's the bottom line of the page that says, what can we do to grow and learn from this, right? At the first page, at the bottom of the first page is some ideas around irreversible corrective actions, thinking about moving forward. Because from the people hearing, seeing what's going on, people talking to their neighbors, right? Obviously, this is an important topic to the village. Going back to, I'm standing up here as a design review board predecessor, and also a part of the village and what we like about the village. And when design review board had ideas and discussions around changing the ordinance, what things in there could we change, what things in there couldn't we change, how could we do it? Proposals were made a couple of times, and there was aspects that were discussed that may or may not be able to be changed in the ordinance, but it was ideas of how to do that. And just also, back then, it was all started because back to the village cares about the tree canopy and what can we do to enhance our communications, our ordinances, what we do and how we do it. So the underlying message is that a lot of people care. A lot of people have come, and probably more comments than deeper than this. But the question is there something we should put and look at going forward, right? I know public comments is just like, hey, here's this topic, maybe we want to put this to future agenda. Is there an agenda item that could occur in the future? Is there, again, a lot of people that care, are there people that can get together and come up with ideas, brainstorming? Like on there's a couple of different ideas, but whether they can or can't be done, it's an idea of what can we do, what ideas, how can we learn from arborists, how can we learn from people who are in the village who have knowledge around this. I'm not an arborist, but maybe somebody is or knows one, right? Of what can we do to make this better for people 20 years from now, 40 years from now, of where the village will be, and how does that fit into like the master plan of, if it's so important to all these people, do we have anything in the master plan about that? I don't know. Right, that's just a question that I have. So, I think that kind of sums up, there's a lot of stuff there, but I'm not going to read it all. And the underlying is there something we can do for the future of potential agenda items and see what we can do to grow and learn from what just occurred.
Thank you. Thank you.
I came in late.
I'm sorry, you'll have to stand up to the podium and say your name and address.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to say right
That's
now,
okay.
But I came in late, so I might have missed some things. But is the arborist?
Sorry, your name. and
Oh, my
address.
name is Candy Kyler Ocker,
And your address.
29675 Bristol Lane. Yeah, I talked to Ken quite a bit, you know, and he was real good about calling me back or contacting me and telling me what was going on with that lot that, you know, we were all concerned about. And he said that there was an arborist that was coming in to, you know, look at it, and that's really cool, that's good. But will the arborist be here? I mean, can we know what that look is, what he's gonna be doing, and what the plan is to kind of restore that property?
So I can't go back and forth during
Yes.
public comment, but I know you missed the part.
Yeah,
So,
and he is,
I'm going to just recap that 36 trees.
yes, I know that, but
Right.
is there a layout plan or something? Is it going to kind of tie in with the rest of the lane? That's all.
Yes.
Okay. Is any of the, you know, I know he took a lot of the underbrush away, and some of that kind of was a buffer for the road. Is that going to be restored at all? Is that part of, Ken?
So we can't back and,
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
during public comment, we can't back and forth. That's
I've
why
never been to a meeting like this.
it's really
either,
hard.
so-
No, you're
Oh.
fine, you're fine. We're glad you came. So during public comment, it's like, we're sitting here listening to the public.
Okay.
So we can't do a back and forth during
Okay.
public comment. We listen to what you have to say. If you want to get into a deeper conversation, what you've done is perfect by calling to the office.
Yeah, he was great. He was very nice to get back to me. And again, I missed the first part of it, and I do apologize for being late, so, you know, I don't want you to have to backtrack on it. But is there going to be like a newsletter or a welcome package or something that's going to be sent out to us so that we know what's going on, and so the new people coming into the area will know the permits and regulations and things and what's happening as far as when meetings are called and things like that?
That's a great question for
Okay,
you to ask Ken.
That's another question. I'll ask Ken. All right, then, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
My name is Bruna Guerra-Lawton. I live at 30320 Bristol Lane. And I wrote something up. A lot of what was said is what I would like to talk about. So I'm just going to read a couple little pieces of what I wrote. I'm commenting today to voice support for the village's tree and woodland protection ordinances. But I'm concerned that these ordinances and how they are enforced are not being clearly communicated to village residents. I think it would be valuable to everybody if pages were added to the village website to inform residents about the tree and woodland protection ordinances, about the process for approving major landscaping changes, and to suggest how residents can improve their landscaping to benefit the health of the natural environment. At a minimum, an up-to-date website could help us avoid ordinance violations. The village master plan talks about providing a resource kit to residents regarding tree preservation, native landscaping, and invasive species. Following through on that promise is another move toward protecting the community's natural areas. So thank you for listening to my concerns and my ideas.
Thank you for coming. Is there any further public comment?
I could say one thing because I questioned some things, but I know you can't answer them.
If you could just say your name and address?
Kathy Deroni, that's Mom, and I live at 22933 Bristol Court. And we've lived there since 1980. well, we started building in 1980, we probably moved in beginning of 81. And we saw, especially on the corner of Bristol Court and Bristol Lane, a piece of land that was clear cut. It was actually 2 pieces. And we just said, that's how they want it. It's their land. And then I see that there's a couple other properties that are clear cut to the road, and they don't fit with the character of everything else that's down the road. And what we're trying to do is preserve what we have now. And you can't go back and tell those people that are clear up to the road they have to undo it because they've already done it. But if everybody on the road, or just on, enough of the road, does what was done in years past, then the whole character would be completely different. I questioned that we weren't getting the condo owners involved, and they said it's because it's not what we're talking about. And I said, but I see so many of them enjoying what we have. They walk their dogs, they go for walks, they go for runs, ride their bikes, and you see a lot of people coming over from the condos to come and enjoy what we have. So I would think that they would also be concerned and want to know if there's something going to go out village-wide, then they would see it and realize that even if we're only talking about an ordinance that protects current trees and it kind of doesn't affect the condos, it does in the general enjoyment of the community. So I just would like to make it known.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Okay, name and address, please.
Dan Willie, 29725 Bristol. I don't know how much all of you are familiar with Birmingham's, their building plan. When you take a 20-inch tree down, you have to replace it with the equivalent. So generally, that would be 4 or 5-inch trees. That's their law. That's how they do it. Builders have told me this. So is that what we're gonna do in this case? You can't answer that, but I would like to see that done. If someone should go there, and some of the trees and a lot of that buckthorn, I had no problem with that, but anything that's of a certain size, I think we need to have a law like that. And people need to replace them. They'll be small, and also the city council and the design committee, which I don't know if we even have one anymore, has the right, similar to Birmingham, that they see the species you put in. You don't put in junk. They get to look at it and say, this is a tree, and especially now, with global warming, we can actually control what kind of trees we put in, because, believe me, we all have a ton dying in our yard. So, and then to reiterate what Candy said, her and I were actually talking, when you take a job, you have a inboarding process. They tell you where you go, the bathrooms are, who's on the HR. Why are we not doing something like that in this village? Maybe we are, but I don't expect everyone to go to a website. So if they have an inboarding process when they bought, then they can't use an excuse. I didn't know, I didn't hear, no one told me, because they've been told. Even if I've lived here 27 years, I would still probably remember that inboarding or have the documents. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I add a comment to his comment?
Sure.
When people ask what I like about being on the acreage I have, I said the privacy. That I wanted to yell at my kids and not have my neighbors know it. Because I got 8 of them. And so we moved in with 6 kids and wound up with 8 kids, and all went to Groves. And we felt that the privacy was part of what we had. And it's privacy from the road, people driving down, and privacy from our neighbors, because we have a big enough piece that we can have plantings there. When that privacy suddenly disappears, you're concerned. When they say, oh, he left this many trees, and he needs to substitute in other trees of equal kind of size, I'm thinking, that doesn't preserve the privacy. If what we have is a bunch of tall trees and nothing low that's preserving the privacy,
Yep.
It's not affecting it. It's got to be considered not to just put in a bunch of black walnuts or elms or whatever you're gonna put, that are gonna be big straight trees and you still see the house. You know, if we're looking at the privacy part of it, we want people to know that some of it has to be screening. Not all of it should be great big trees that are gonna grow up and privacy won't be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing. I walk the lane and I've written about these trees to myself and I've, commented a lot of times that, these huge trees that were there from the time that I moved in are dying, and they're heritage trees, and they were really healthy for a long, long time. And I know the people that own these new houses manicure their lawns perfectly, but the trees near the road, these tall pine trees, are not being maintained. And I think they could be rejuvenated, made healthy again. But there's all this stuff around them and they're not being taken care of. And there was a landscaper that went by there and he had stopped in front of the house and I said, "Oh, are you fertilizing these trees?" And he said, "Is this your house?" And I said, "No." He said, "I'm not gonna tell you anything. I mean, what do you wanna know for?" So I'm just wondering, is there anything at some point that we can do to preserve the big heritage trees or regulated trees that are lining the lane that don't seem to be taken care of? If there could be some kind of fine, or there could be some kind of monies that went into taking care of the trees that line the lane if the owners don't want to take care of them.
Hi, I'm Maggie Van Camp and I live at 22905 Bristol Court. And I just want to reiterate some of the information. I'm a gardener and I agree with having a buffer, certain kind of buffers. And I think that there are great plants that are available. But again, I have a list. I'm not an arborist. I don't have a degree as an arborist. But I think along with, something was mentioned here that the new people should get this information, the trees and all. How about us that have lived here for 20, 30, 35 years? I think since this has become such a big thing, everybody needs to know now. Everybody has trees on their property. They have to know that this is right and this is wrong. And as far as the pine trees, we have a pine beetle disease that's eating the trees and killing them, and there's nothing we can do about it. We can try, but there's nothing you can
I
do
don't
about
think
it.
it's these trees though that I'm talking about.
If it's evergreens,
They're not all
Okay,
evergreens are dying.
I'm sorry.
They're in my
I'm
yard.
sorry. There can't be back and forth there either.
So, my suggestion is, if the arborist is coming to talk to you or Ken or whoever it is, that you get a list of bushes that could be buffer bushes. My very favorite is viburnum, and there's tons of them, and they're different sizes, and they're whatever, and they live in the shade, they live whatever, and they make a great buffer. And they only, if you're good, they get about this tall, but they're full.
Are they
So
native?
Yes.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
So that's just my input, that I would like to see us homeowners that have been here to get the same information that the new guys are getting, because this is a very current topic. It isn't something that's been there. It's up front. And I think there's a lot of people who aren't here that don't know about it. And if we could get a list of bushes that people, I hate buckthorn. A buckthorn should be gone. It kills trees, it kills the underbrush. Putting in a buffer is right, but there's certain things. And if people had a list, they don't know. They don't know when they go if that bush is gonna grow just like a tree and be stocky, or if it's gonna be rough. That's just my input.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Amrita Singh. My husband's Banesh Patel. We live at 29555 Bristol Lane. Formerly lived at 29900 Bristol Lane. And so I really like this idea of educating each other. We've lived there, let's see, since 2006. I remember someone hosted a buckthorn education meeting on their property. I don't know who it was, many years ago, and that was very helpful. I attended it, I had no idea, found out a lot of our undergrowth on our old property was buckthorn, and then proceeded to just take all of that out. Unfortunately, that did take out some of the privacy barrier between us and our neighbor. So it's hard because I think a lot of us like the privacy, but then we don't like the buckthorn, and it was choking out other trees. So I don't know if you have an arborist that's willing to maybe do a small lecture that we can spread the news and we can attend and we can learn about the low barriers, we can learn about buckthorn, we can learn about better quality trees, all of that, I think that would be helpful, especially sometimes we get people to treat the trees and the cost is huge, and like someone without any secondary gain perhaps just to educate us in all this, and whoever wants to attend, we can spread flyers or whatever, but
Okay,
that'd be great.
good. Thank you. No? Anybody else? Okay, thank you all for your comments. We have had conversation, I will just say quickly, that about the trees and the issues with the trees, so I'm sure that that will be on a future agenda coming up soon. So if you just watch for that, we will, I'm sure this conversation will continue. So please watch for that and come to join in that conversation.
When you say come join that conversation, should they adjourn that agenda item or even come beforehand to talk to Ken or anyone beforehand also?
Whatever people are comfortable with. Just give me a second here. I'm going to move on to the Oakland Community Health Network proclamation. Oakland Community Health Network has asked us to support National Suicide Prevention Month, which is September. Please see the resolution in your packets. And may it be resolved that Oakland Community Health Network hereby recognizes September 2023 as National Suicide Prevention Month. OCHN calls upon our individuals, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, faith-based organizations, and schools to recommit our state to increasing awareness and understanding of suicide prevention and the need for appropriate and accessible services to assist individuals in crisis. If anybody would like to add anything to that, but I am going to move on. We have another one from Oakland County for National Recovery Month. Oakland Community Health Network has asked us to also recognize National Recovery Month as September of 2023. So be it resolved that Oakland Community Health Network hereby recognize September 2023 as National Recovery Month. OCHN calls upon individuals, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, faith-based organizations, and schools to recommit our state to increasing awareness and understanding of substance use and the need for appropriate and accessible services to promote recovery. So we get asked to do that from time to time, and we always like to support those efforts going out into the community to help any residents. We are going to move on to discussion topics. We have our police chief here. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone. I won't reiterate anything that's in our written submissions. I do want to add one thing, though, just for information, perhaps so that people can keep a lookout. Bloomfield Township had a concerning stranger danger at one of their elementary schools at Long Lake and Telegraph last week. Of course, that always puts fear in everybody's hearts, and so we would ask that everybody keep an eye out, especially at Bingham Farms Elementary School, for this individual. Is a white male, between 30 and 40 years old, thin build, with red hair and wearing a gray hoodie. He was seen attempting to lure children into his car with candy, just every parent's nightmare, at the Way Elementary School up there at Long Lake and Telegraph. So it's pretty close to home, so we just ask all the residents to keep an eye out for an individual that matches that description, and please call 911 right away, and we'll come right out and check him out and see who it is. Have been unable to identify him to date, so definitely looking for him. Other than that, the only thing I will mention is just a follow-up from the last meeting when we talked about our deputy chief position. We had a number of candidates for that. I believe we received 16 applications. We're still going through them all, trying to move forward and whittle that list down, but very happy with the results of the application process in terms of the quality of the candidates, and I anticipate that several will be called back for interviews once we are able to delve in and whittle that down. The job just closed last Friday, so we'll be whittling that number down soon. Other than that, that's all I have, unless you have some questions for me. Yes, sir?
I do, Chief. Every month when we get these crime reports and I see how low the crime is in our community, I'm almost astonished that it's that low, and grateful. And I think that sometimes we tend to take it for granted. I think there's several reasons why it's so low. Older community, more wealth maybe than in other communities, but I think one of the reasons that it's so low is because we've had a great police chief for a long time.
Thanks. I'll take the credit, but I don't know that that's the reason.
No,
But thank you.
I'm sure some of it is the reason.
Yeah.
And I'm being serious about this, and that's why when you first mentioned a couple of months ago that you were retiring, I asked what the process was going to be for replacing you, and at that time it wasn't in place yet. And now, last meeting, you told us that the plan is to hire an assistant police chief,
Correct.
who you will then work with, and then
Yep.
when you retire, he will take over for you.
Correct. Next summer.
And so I asked Ken to get information from the Village of Franklin as to what the process will be and how the Village of Bingham Farms fits into that process, because from my perspective, it's extremely important for us as well as for Franklin who the new police chief is going to be. And so Ken has talked with the Franklin manager, Mr. Frazier, and my understanding is that the process is that beginning in October, Roger, his assistant Susan, and you are going to be interviewing 7 to 8 candidates and whittling down the field. Second step, Roger, his assistant, and you, plus the Franklin Personnel Committee, will be interviewing 3 or 4 semifinalists. And then the third step is the Franklin Village Council will interview the finalists. It could be all 4 of the semis or a lesser number. And that this last meeting would be an open council session, and that Roger thinks that this would be a good meeting. A couple of Bingham Farms people could attend and ask questions. That's my understanding of what the process is going to be. First of all,
you know more about it than I do. Then, so, okay, that's great.
I'm extremely happy that you're included in the process from the beginning. That
Yes.
gives me a sense of comfort. But I have to say I'm disappointed that Bingham Farms is not included in the process until this last step, after the field has already been whittled down to 4 people. I'm just not sure what kind of a message that sends. I fully understand that it's the Franklin Police Force, and I fully understand that we just hire their services. But still, we're like 50% of the budget.
Yeah.
And I just would have, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm one of 7 people, and I'm bringing this up so that there can be comments from other people who might tell me I'm totally out to lunch. But it seems to me like we should have a little bit more of a role in the process than is currently anticipated. What if the philosophy of the new police chief is markedly different from what we in this village would hope it would be? What message does it send to an incoming police chief when he goes through 2 sets of interviews, sees a bunch of people from Franklin and nobody from Bingham Farms? How does that impact him in terms of the importance of policing Bingham Farms. Maybe I'm totally overreacting to this, but I would like to discuss it for a few minutes and see if any of the other trustees, I mean, if you think I'm out to lunch and that this is no big deal, and then tell me that and I'll just drop it. But it seems to me like we ought to be involved a little bit earlier on in the process than at the last meeting.
Yeah, I don't think you're out to lunch. I think it's a valid question to ask. I guess what I look at is the value that any of us could bring that understands the nature of police work. And my trust is primarily in you, because you live it and you have probably most of your adult life.
Yes.
Yes.
Since I was 21
And
years
I
old, and
come
I'm 62 now, so you
Yeah.
can do the math.
I come from 3 generations of law enforcement officers, administrators, and educators. And I don't know that I would be, a good assessor of what this, because the police work changes. It has dramatically changed since 1911 when my grandfather joined Detroit. So I don't know, I think maybe being there would be nice. I don't know that we could really make the contribution that would make a difference. So.
From my perspective, I think, I agree with you. I think that I would rely on Chief to make that assessment. I do think from an optics standpoint, it would be helpful to be involved in the process so that the message is clear of the importance of the role of Bingham Farms. I guess it's more maybe a question for Ken. I don't know if we have anything in our agreement that allows us to, because I know you disagree.
I don't think it does, but I don't,
No,
it's silent towards that, I
that's
think. But
right. It's a contract between the village and our village and Village of Franklin. And the way that the contract currently reads is that it's a 5-year term. It ends on June 30th, 2015. But it automatically rolls over if you don't opt out 1 year before that. So in other words, we would have to opt out by June 30, 2024, or we're in it for another 5 years. And I am not looking, and please don't anybody go and tell anybody that Kurt Jones says we ought to get rid of the police department, because that is exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if we have a new police chief that we don't like, we have until June 30, 2024 to find a different department. And again, I don't want to go that way at all. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but
let me
but
just
if we don't do that, then we have that police chief for another 5 years.
But it's not a matter of liking. It's a matter of having an effective protocol that's followed. That's good. We have safe communities because of good police work, because leadership does the training and oversees operations. And we've got police officers that are passionate about their work. I've had opportunities to have one-on-one conversations, and I'm really proud and very comfortable with our law enforcement. Certainly leadership is important because they can set a tone, they can change policy, but I really don't see where Franklin's going to do that. We've got a winning formula now.
Let me just try to ease a little bit of the fears. So first of all, like I said, the candidates that we received are outstanding. And they are all at least bachelor degree individuals who have been in for decades in law enforcement. In fact, that was our minimum qualification, was you had to hold a command level position, you had to have at least a bachelor's. Our top candidates, as I view them, have at least a master's degree, have been through something like the FBI's National Academy and or Northwestern University's Staff and Command School. So on paper, the candidates that we have look exceptional. And so we would never get you somebody that was not qualified. I actually put it into my police chief contract the last time that I wanted to be an equal partner in the selection process, because I knew I was coming to an end, and I wanted to have that. So it's right in my contract where they have to give me an equal vote. I am not the only vote, ultimately Franklin Council makes that decision, but I certainly have a lot of, a lot of input there, and I know personally some of the candidates. I know good and bad about some, and some will not get interviews because of things that I know about them and things like that. So, yeah, there are some great candidates out there, and we will get, that's the whole point, is that the interview process is going to come down to who's the best fit. They're all going to have very similar resumes in terms of paper. It's going to be who has the best personality, who's going to be the best fit for both villages. And both villages are very similar. It's funny because Tony and I were standing out in the hallway talking, almost laughing about your tree conversation, because that goes on every month in Franklin for the last 12 years I've been here. They have tree conversations over there. And so I've heard this before, but I've never heard it here before. So we will absolutely find somebody that will fit within the character of both villages here and get that going. Now, we have included Ken in things like our police officer union negotiations. Ken's been in the room, can ask questions and do whatever he wants. Personally, I don't see why he couldn't be in this as well, to protect your interests as well. So I will certainly take that back to Roger Frazier and Mr. Lamont, who's the president of the council, and ask that Ken be at least included in the room. Honestly, I don't know why not. I mean, what's the harm there? So I will take it back. That's all I can do. I'm not the final decider of that. But
I think your logic is extremely good, because Ken is a representative, and his presence there, that's the whole point, is the physical presence. I mean, that's what
Right.
Kurt alluded to, but the physical presence of someone saying, Bingham Farms is here too, and we're not an equal partner, but we're a substantial partner.
pretty damn close to equal. Yeah.
In this hire.
Yeah, we pay $170,000 a month
Yes. Yeah.
to the police department, and I think
Yeah.
that should give Ken a seat at the table.
I'm not arguing with you. I mean,
Yeah.
we were the ones that.
He brought it up. He just brought it up, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Yeah.
when I got here as police chief, you were paying roughly 40 to 45% of the budget at that time. There was nothing that had your name on it anywhere. So we ended up putting Bingham Farms on all of our police cars. We put it on our letterhead. We made it, much more look like a partnership rather than, Franklin Police doing things for Bingham Farms. And so we've added that. It's, it's baby steps, but it means something over the years. And like I say, but prior to Ken, I don't think anybody's ever been included from here in union negotiations before. So, yeah, we're trying. We'll get there.
No, I know you're trying it again. I've got nothing but praise for you and your department, and I wish you just wouldn't retire for another 20 years, but I think that's kind of an unfair ask, and so
No, it's time.
appreciate your
somebody else. Somebody
appreciate you
that's
taking
younger
that.
and has some better ideas and come in and, 12 years for a police chief is unheard of. That's really, for example, Bloomfield Township to your north, since I've been chief here, I think they're on their 5th chief since I've been here as the chief. So, yeah, that's more likely, is 3 to 4 years is pretty much max for police chiefs around, and then they move on and somebody else comes in, so. But anyway, I will take it back, and, Ken and I will talk in the future and see if there's
Thank
a
you.
way we can't plug that in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
New podium, by the way, I like it.
Thank you, thank you. I can see the people trying to hide. Next is the fire department monthly report, but I know that the chief had to leave for his 7:30 meeting. Once in a while, a couple times a year, we cross over at this time. So we have his monthly report in our packet, and he told me before he left he had nothing to add to that. So if there's any further questions, you can speak directly with the fire chief. We will move to manager's report.
Thank you, Madam President. The only thing I have to add is just a reminder to everybody here and who's ever watching is that October 5th, Thursday, October 5th is our large item pickup. Have your items at the curb by 7 o'clock, and things will be collected, things like couches and appliances and all those large items that are things that you don't normally throw away on an average Thursday. Again, Thursday, October 5th. Next one would be, the next one will be not till the spring, so get your stuff out now. That's it, pretty much, unless anybody has questions.
Yes.
So, since in your report, you did spend some time in your report with regards to the tree situation, I just wanted to ask a question or two about it. I seem to recall that our ordinances do list what kind of trees you can have and what kind you can't have. Am I correct on that? Does that strike?
There's yes and no. There's certainly a DBH, or a diameter breast height over what's a regulated tree and what isn't. That's 6 inches at the breast height of a man. So that's what's regulated. Any trunk that's smaller than that is technically not a regulated tree.
Okay, I thought there was a list like you could have this kind of tree and not that kind of tree. Am I just,
I think there is.
Maybe my memory is wrong, but I thought there was part of the.
There is something of that nature in the Design Review Board ordinance, the ordinance that creates the Design Review Board. It was written in the 80s. I did have the SISMA, the Invasive Species Management Area Director, review that, and there, frankly, would need to be updated significantly, in her opinion, because there's so much
Change.
There's been so much change since the 80s when that was written.
Okay, and I know that the ordinances are all on the website so that people
That's
can
correct.
see them on the website. Is there a specific, in the website, like a specific page, like if you want to remove your tree or something like that? Is there anything like that on our?
Where you would find the Woodlands Protection Ordinance, it's just in the code book with all the other ordinances.
All the other stuff.
You could Google it.
Okay.
I mean, you could search it on the
Search
search bar and find it fairly, in my opinion, fairly easily. But I go to it all the time, so.
Okay, and is there anything, I know we have a welcome packet.
We do.
Is there anything in the welcome packet that talks about, like, removing trees or anything like that, just to
The
your?
importance of trees, a couple of documents, I haven't looked at it in a while, but we did add some things in the last couple of years about the importance of trees and stormwater interception and how they add property value to your property. There's several items like that in the, as well as invasive species regulation in the welcome packet. That goes out to everybody when they move in.
Okay, thank
When
you.
we catch their addresses. We don't necessarily have that instantly. People don't have to check in with us before they decide to buy a house, in
Right.
other words.
Right, thanks. I just thought I'd ask a couple questions because some of the
Mhm.
people were still here, but thank
Sure.
you.
I would note just your question about where to find it. I actually Googled Bingham Farms tree ordinance, and the first result that pops up is the ordinance.
In Google search.
In Google
No,
search.
okay.
So you don't even need to be on the website. You
Okay.
can- But you have to know that we have a tree ordinance, which is
True.
important. So I would, just making a comment on that topic, I would probably have the ordinance in the packet, if it's not already yet. I'm sure we'll talk about this at a future time, but I thought your summary in the materials was very helpful.
Thank you.
Provided some good facts, so I'm sure we'll come back to it.
Thank you. I would also suggest that, not to go negative here, but there are people that come into a community that don't want to know what the ordinances are because they want to do their own thing. So they're going to have blinders on, they're not going to Google, they're not going to search, they're just going to go ahead and do what they want to do. And I think that's frequently what we're faced with, is dealing with residents who probably know that there are ordinances, but don't check. So I think it's imperative that one way of finding out who's coming in and who's leaving the village is to go to Zillow and put in Bingham Farms and search, and it brings up every house that's been on the MLS and talks about it and which ones have sold. So that's one way of tracking any houses for sale. But I think we need to brainstorm on how we can do a better job of informing residents, whether they want to know or not, of what the rules are and the penalties for those who don't follow them.
Is there any further comment on that? Okay, we will be visiting it again, so gather up your thoughts and put them on paper. Next is the Economic Development Coordinator Report. Yevgeny?
It was a short month. I don't really have much to add to my written submission unless there are questions.
Could you mention, please, the new discovery regarding Noodles and Company?
Yes, as I found out today while Googling where to go to lunch, Noodles and Company has closed permanently in Bingham Farms.
Oh, no. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you talked about 31780 Telegraph Road as being a tentative building for the vacancies in your report?
If you're talking about the building that was
Superior
formerly
Bank.
Superior
Yes.
National Bank,
Yes.
well, yes, the bank was the last remaining tenant of that building, and I believe they're, have they moved out already?
It's a couple, another week, I think.
I think they have one more week left, but yeah, they're moving out this month.
Okay. And is there any prospect that you're aware of?
No.
So it could sit vacant for a period of time?
I can almost guarantee you it's going to be vacant for at least several months. Just, I think I actually mentioned it last month that even if they had a tenant ready and willing to sign a lease tomorrow, on average, that process of getting that tenant then moved in takes about 5 to 6 months. And from our conversation, I don't believe they had one lined up yet, just because of the nature of the
Will there be
market right now.
security in that area?
I don't believe most buildings have a security staff. The ones that do definitely don't have it there 24 or around the clock. But that building is part of our police SAD district, just like the rest of the commercial properties. So we do have a police presence there, which, based on statistics of the SAD, seems to be doing a pretty good job of keeping that area pretty secure.
Okay.
The department is aware. that they're-
I'm sorry?
The department's aware that it's on the brink of vacancy,
Okay.
and so they'll put get extra eyes on it, I guess.
Any other comments for Yevgeny? Questions?
I forgot, I highlighted something for Ken, two questions. Last month, Carol Osmond asked about the house on Bristol Lane, 29975, and there was a demo permit and utility shutoffs pending. What's the status of that this month?
Second utility shut-off, and the final utility shut-off occurred last week. I got an email from the homeowner on Friday saying that it'll probably be 2 to 3 weeks, but I'm not gonna hold into that. The permit's still good for several months. But I think we'll see some action pretty quickly.
Good, good. And the other is, there was a tree down in the ROW at the corner of Bristol Lane and Bristol Court.
There was a dead tree there that's been taken down.
Okay, it's gone?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Moving to new business, we are going to talk about the driveway ordinance, possible amendment. Ken,
Yeah, sure. Real briefly, last month's, this year's only ZBA meeting, we had a discussion about driveways and the ordinance that regulates them, and the applicant at the ZBA meeting actually mentioned that he thought perhaps the driveway ordinance should be relocated somewhere else, meaning the zoning ordinance, and I think that Trustee Jones would like to take that up, and I will turn it over to him.
Yeah, Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also indicated that you had another builder who indicated that he couldn't find
Yes,
the driveway ordinance because he was looking in the zoning ordinance.
that's correct.
So that's two, and I don't particularly want there to be a third, is my reason for suggesting this. And I think that most builders, when they're looking to, for what the driveway ordinance is, they go to the zoning code, and I know at our last meeting, when we had the zoning board of appeals meeting, our attorney also said that he thought it would be a good idea to put it in the zoning code. And so I really think we should move it so we can avoid situations like we had last month.
Is it currently in the building code?
It's currently in the code of
It's
ordinances,
it's
our general
Code of
code.
ordinances
Somewhere
on the
in-
website.
Right, somewhere in the general ordinances, but not in the zoning code.
Okay.
There's,
Yeah, I didn't have a problem finding it.
okay, there's one other
I mean-
reason why I think it should be moved, and
Mhm.
and it has nothing to do with finding it. It has to do with the language in the zoning code. And
Like
there's
where
a,
it belongs.
well, there's a, do you have that?
Yeah, I printed it. 7.8.
This is just one example of why I think it should be moved. It's 7.8.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if you, this is the section of the zoning code that talks about what you have to do to, maybe you can pass a couple of those down.
Oh, they're all the same. Sorry.
And this is in the zoning code, and you, if you read through it, you see that the last phrase is, or are otherwise in compliance with the requirements of this chapter. Okay, this is in the zoning code, and the chapter that they're referring to is the zoning code. So in other words, that phrase doesn't apply to the driveway ordinance, because that ordinance is not in the zoning code. So if you would read this, then it would say that, they have to get the as-built plans and get the certification. They have to show that all structures and other site improvements have been located or constructed in conformity with the village approved plans. Well, in our situation last month, that would not have been the case, okay? But then it goes on to say, or are otherwise in compliance with the requirements of this chapter. Well, it would have been in compliance with the requirements of this chapter because the driveway stuff isn't in this chapter. So what I'm suggesting is that we move it into this chapter so that we don't have, like occurrences like that in the future.
Did you go through to see if there are other things besides the driveway portion
I did not.
that are not
I did not.
in here?
I
Because
did
if we
not.
fix one thing, will there be another situation with some other aspect that the builder doesn't see in this chapter?
I didn't do that. So
Could someone-
the answer is it's possible.
Huh. Because this could be the start of other things to come. I would suggest that we take that little extra step somehow or another to go through and see if there are other pertinent areas that are not part of the chapter that the builders look at.
And I would
Okay,
like to ask.
I certainly understand where you're coming from with that, and I totally understand the logic of it. If we're gonna do that, the person that's gonna have to do that is gonna be our attorney, and it's gonna cost money.
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to communicate without getting another bill. So, let's go through the process. There's a presentation of plans. People bring their construction plans in, their architectural plans on what they want to build. Is that where it starts?
I guess I'm not sure where you're going with this. I'm just,
Well,
all I'm
I-
saying is that there are sections in the zoning code which refer to compliance with things in this chapter. Okay,
Sure.
in this chapter, and
Sure.
the driveway stuff isn't in the chapter. So every time it refers to requirements of this chapter, it doesn't cover anything having to do with the driveway.
But what I'm asking is, when I just did a project at the house, and I had to submit my plans, exactly what was being built, the dimensions, the height, the foundation, the structural, the I-beams, all of that had to be identified. And those plans were approved. Now, if I changed those plans, I then had to go back to the village, and I also had to go back to Southfield Building Department in order to get the changes approved. So it seems to me that the plan submitted for this particular home would have included the driveway. They were approved at 18 feet because they wouldn't have approved 22 feet. And somebody arbitrarily changed that approved 18-foot driveway to 22 feet.
Well, what Kurt's saying is that.
I know what
this
he's
is
saying.
Probably not making it, it's probably not enforceable.
But the thing is, what's enforceable is the approved plans.
No, because I think this is what we're saying is because when he comes back with the as-bills, if we deny the as-bills, we can't deny for things that are outside this chapter.
Mhm.
That's why I think we have to move it.
Well, and that's fine. I regret that we have to incur a fee to do it. But I think what we need to do is stick to what's approved. We've had multiple occurrences with houses built way outside ordinances. And I think that's avoidable. I think we need to stick to the rules. And if it means doing this, then let's do
I
it.
think that's, yeah.
Let's do it. But let's not be one of the forgiveness just because you changed your mind and built it the way you want it to be built.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, and part of the reason for my suggestion is because I think this will help us enforce the rules.
I think
Because
this is a step.
Yeah,
Right.
that would be important.
It's not the whole game, and I think we should get a cost from the attorney to go through the ordinance to find the other components that should be included in this as-built, or is it in this chapter? At least if we get an estimate.
I think I agree with you, I think that's a good idea.
So is that,
Maybe we should do that first before having him change this one. I know we need to change this one, but it probably is more
a good
cost
idea.
effective to see if there are other ones first.
Yeah.
So maybe we ought to do that, then I don't think we need a motion for that, do we?
No.
To just get a,
But know that it won't be cheap
well,
to ask
whatever-
the attorney to review the entire code book for things that might need to be moved to the zoning ordinance would be, I mean, the code book is 300 pages long. So, I mean, just keep that in mind.
Just see what the number is.
I can ask him to give us an estimate, but
We know the workaround moving just this one is not,
it would be minimal.
no.
It would be instructed to the planning commission. The planning consultants would adjust the zoning ordinance, and it would simply be stricken from the code book. That's fairly simple, to remove something. To integrate or to it would be a different matter. I said all that without my microphone being on. I'm sorry.
I'm sure Mike.
Okay.
all right, well, I'm fine delaying it then until we get a cost estimate to do the.
when I was reviewing the ordinances for preparation for last meeting, I noticed that the driveways was a topic. And so the ordinances are structured by topic. So I don't think it's a matter of having to read every page of a 200-page code book. I think an assessment of which areas to look in more deeply can be. So I would still encourage the attorney to give us an estimate.
I'm fine with that.
So before we move forward, we are going to find out the cost.
Yep, I'll get that.
Okay. Johnson Landscaping snow removal contract is next.
All right. Members of council, before you is Johnson Landscaping's proposed snow removal contract. I have note that there is no price increase from over last year's contract, not even in salt. And I think it's a fairly reasonable contract, and I would ask that you approve it.
Do I hear a motion on the snow removal contract.
I would move to approve the snow removal contract as presented in the materials.
Second.
Oh, can I ask, shoot.
You're right.
Discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where is it? In the first line of the contract, it says, winter season from November 1, 2023, ending April 1, 2023. Pretty sure that should be
Supposed to be 24.
2024.
I spent so much time correcting it to 23, I forgot to make that one 24.
Yeah, that's supposed to be April 1st, 2024. That's not an April Fool's joke.
That was the only,
Any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Old business includes the small cell ordinance, second reading. Ken?
Yeah, members of council, this was before you last month. This, for first reading, this is the small cell ordinance. This is part of the march of technology. Frankly, these small cells, which are very comparatively tiny, are supposed to be mounted on utility poles and whatnot, and we have no ordinance that governs this. This was presented to you last month. There's a whole write-up by the attorney. There was some questions about, this was sort of a cut and paste deal where there was some language that related to, I think, a township rather than a village. I've gone through that with the attorney. I believe all that's cleaned up now. The second reading is before you for passage. Upon passage, we would publish a summary in the newspaper, the Birmingham Eagle, and following that, we would establish a fee by council resolution for small cell, as according to state law. So moving forward, when these things come before us, we can actually charge fees and realize an element of revenue. When small cells are proposed in the right-of-way, there is a review fee. The attorneys, or the engineers do have to review that for us on our behalf. We would like to cover that cost rather than just out of pocket. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Oh, I do have a question. How much is this costing us in legal fees to do this?
Frankly, I'm not sure. I haven't seen their bill yet about this, but I would imagine it's probably a couple $100.
Is there any way to recapture this from the companies installing the small cell?
I would say not now, only but the next time, yes.
Why?
If no one's proposed a small cell.
Well, we do have one that's being proposed.
Oh.
Yeah.
But by the time,
That happened all the time.
by the time this gets in, this is passed and approved, and we have a resolution for the cost, it would apply to the engineer, not necessarily to the attorney fee. I don't know how we could suddenly just ask them to pay our attorney fees.
Well, you'd think that this would be something that wouldn't cost our village, because we're providing contact to put up product from another company that's making money off of it.
True.
So if they're making a profit by using structures in our village, then we should be able somehow to capture that cost.
I can see capturing the cost going forward with engineering. I can't see capturing the cost for the attorney writing this up. I would attribute that to simply the cost of doing business as a community.
We
And
don't
I,
have to-
and I don't know necessarily like that answer, but
Yeah.
that's just,
Me neither.
yeah.
But perhaps we should bear this cost in mind when we're setting the fee structure.
That's, yes, we could do that, but that is regulated.
Get it at the back end rather
That is
than the front.
regulated by the state.
It is
And
regulated.
and according to our attorney, it's fairly minimal.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, I think the attorney at the I think he agreed we had set the fee at the highest it could be, but it was very minimal based on the state regulation. I mean, we don't have to have an ordinance, but if we don't have an ordinance, we can't collect anything, or
Or regulate, yeah.
I wasn't, it was news to me that there was a proposed small cell. Where's that? proposed for?
Along 13 Mile, just hanging on some of the utility poles. I don't know that anybody would even notice them because they are pretty tiny.
And that,
But they're not installed yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was proposed recently, or?
Yes. Yeah, this is a massive project that stretches across many Oakland County communities.
It was before the last meeting it was proposed?
Yes.
Let me clarify something. When you say something was proposed, you might be imagining somebody coming to the podium with plans,
Yeah, yeah,
blueprints, roadmaps. No, this is a company that actually does the install for the larger company that does this small cell stuff, that calls a community and says, hey, what's your permit process for doing this in the right of way?
Okay.
And we tell them, here it is, or no, we don't have one, and then they do their job. That's all it is.
Okay, I didn't realize when we were discussing this at the last meeting, I guess I didn't realize there had been one, there had been any contact regarding
Oh,
one.
yeah.
I thought it was
Sorry.
much more of a, do it now so we're ready in the future kind of.
I'm answering that because I was the person that answered the phone when the contractor called, and there's only one device that's currently in the process of being installed in the village. It's going to be on 13 Mile. That's it. So,
Thank you.
going forward, anything else will obviously be referred to the ordinance.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion? Did I miss a motion
For the second reading?
for the second reading?
What motion are you looking for here? Just a motion to approve?
Right, there's a motion to approve the second reading.
This would be, second reading is approving the ordinance to become part of the code.
That's right, that's what I thought.
It's simple, it's at the bottom of the page. It's simply motion to approve small cell ordinance as presented.
I move that we approve the small cell ordinance as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Moving to treasurer's report. Bill, the approval of the September 2023 bills.
Good evening, and thank you, President Blackburn. In your packet, we have two motions, the first one being approve September 2023 bills. And what you'll find in your packet is two check disbursement reports for the dates. They're exactly the same dates, which are August 25th, 2023 through September 14th, 2023. Out of the total general fund, we dispersed $158,909.50. And out of the gas and weight fund, there was one disbursement for $1,510 even for the same time frame, August 25th, 23 through September 14th, 23. Any questions from the council?
I'm just not familiar with some of these abbreviations. What is MMRMA?
MMRMA, and Ken, you can correct me if I'm learning the acronyms, is Michigan Municipality
Risk management.
Risk Management.
Authority.
Yes, so thank you. So Kurt, what that is that is our insurance through MMRMA that covers us for liability and such things as that. We get a policy from them every year, and it's come due this year, and the policy has just been written. We've just signed and responded back with payment and issued payment for that policy.
Okay, and then last question from me is, there's two entries for the Village of Franklin. Is one our regular and one the commercial district, or one is like 55,000, one is 32,000?
Yes, the first one, the higher one, is our police services that are rendered for that period of time, and the second one is for the SAD portion.
Thank you.
I move to approve the bills as presented.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The second motion, motion B, is to accept the financial statements for August 2023. And it also, just wanted to bring to everyone's attention from last council meeting, that this also includes under the investment section, both the July and August, since the July was missing in the last packet due to the power outage and some conflict there of a little getting misplaced in last month's package. So again, I will entertain any questions that council has regarding both the financial statements and/or the month of July and/or August investments.
I don't have any on the financial statements, but I would ask the progress of the audit, how we're progressing from a timing perspective on the audit.
You're a great stand-up straight guy, Aaron, Councilman Crable. The answer is Raina has actually started collecting files and data. She's actually expected to come in tomorrow, and she is working towards making sure that it's a little bit more. I would look back at last year at the same time, and it was still in progress. It is a little bit, I don't want to say delayed, but a little bit more intense and cumbersome because of the switch from QuickBooks to BS&A. So it's just taking a little bit longer time to make sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and things are syncing up. But we are actively working on that, and she still expects to be able to make the presentation, I believe she said in November, of the audit results.
I would move to approve the, accept the financial statements and schedules presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Just quick, only, and I'll admit.
Sorry, I should have.
No, please. This is not my strength. Anything with numbers and money, it's not. So I'm looking at there's 2 of 9. It's not clearly on the page. But it says 2 major roads, 2 local roads from, and then on another page, from general fund, from major road fund. What are those entries?
Are you talking about the actual profit and loss statement? Oh, okay. So the report breaks down 3 separate sections of the profit and loss. The first one's the general fund. The second one within gas and weight, we have 2.
Right.
We have major roads and we have local roads.
Okay.
So each of them have to be accounted for distinctly. So anything that happens, for instance, I'll give you an example. Anything that happens with Johnson Landscaping, when he has the bill, I separate it out of how much of it goes towards major roads and how much of it goes towards local roads for what he plows, what he salts, where he cuts, where he removes trees. And typically what we do is we, based upon the state of Michigan, I take it and percentage it out, 60% to major roads, 40% to local, unless it's discrete and it's very distinct that it was specifically on a local road. Another example would be when Beverly Hills sends us a bill for cold patching on specific roads. I ask what road was the actual cold patch done, so I can determine whether it's the major or whether it's local.
Got it.
Does that answer your question?
Can I add to that?
Sure.
The only major road that we have is Bingham Road.
Yes.
That's the local major road.
Right.
Local roads are all the other village-owned roads. Even though people think in their minds 13-mile and 14-mile are major, they are
Oakland
big
County.
roads, but those are all in Oakland County, correct?
Right. And then the condos obviously have their own, exactly.
Is there any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Bill. Moving to trustee comments. Trustee Hedge?
I just want to comment on the chief's excellent work and thank Kurt for bringing up the fact of including Bingham Farms in the search.
Over the last several meetings in the spring and summer, residents have shown concern about roads and trees. And these are 2 of the bedrock things about Bingham Farms. And I think that we as a council are being charged to some way or another have some good communication on an ongoing basis regarding these 2 subjects, trees and roads. Whether that be a special newsletter. I know that Ken said that he was going to be putting out a roads newsletter, but we need to move quickly on these subjects to apprise all the residents who are not just here, but all the residents throughout the village, what actions we are taking, what issues we are facing on these two areas.
I'm alarmed with events in the village that have taken place without appropriate oversight. And I think one of my biggest concerns with the tree cutting on Bristol are two. Was there a property survey provided? That's a question. And was there a landscape plan provided? Which I had to do both when I did landscaping on my property. And we had a neighbor build an accessory building on the property line. Half of it was on his neighbor's property, because he never did a survey. I think in the building, you told me the building that he did build after he moved, the one on the property line, was too tall. So we have multiple instances of residents cutting their soft borders, cutting trees. Not all are buckthorn, not all are diseased, and without oversight. And I would go so far as to entertain bringing back some kind of a resident group to help with this, and one that has knowledge of what ordinances are and will work to produce a win-win situation on projects. And I would like to see us discuss that. I think that would be an important element in moving forward to avoid these types of violations from occurring again.
I have no comments.
I understand the concern that you're raising, and you know, I'm one of the people that was referred to of living in the condos and walking down Bristol Lane and enjoying the scenery and the walks and stuff like that. And I was shocked when I walked down and saw what had happened to that property. I think it looks a lot better now than it did when I first walked by, since the cleanup happened, but it's still a huge difference. And but I don't want to come off as sounding like I'm taking it lightly, because I'm not. I was not happy with that at all. But I think we have to recognize that there is there's a tension every time you have an issue like this between the fact that the person that owns the property, in fact, owns the property, and they have certain rights as the owners of the property, versus the fact that you have a village that wants to maintain its character, and that there's a conflict there. And it's not always easy to figure out where the line is in that conflict. And I think that you can go way too far the other way.
Well, that's not where we're headed.
Well, we've in the past, I think we've been there.
I'm talking about going forward.
Well, all I'm suggesting is that, as much as I dislike what happened there, I think that we have to realize that there is this conflict, and that it's not something that's easily done. It's not something that's easily resolved, because the property owners do have rights.
They cannot build whatever they want on the lot without having a permit. Okay?
I agree.
I mean,
We're talking about.
huh?
We're not talking about that.
No, we're talking about the property.
We talked about building anything without a permit.
My neighbors did that. See, we're talking about occurrences in the village that are difficult to fix if left without oversight. And, you know, Kurt, I understand what you're saying. I have no vision of being a dictator. That's not the point. The point is, just as we, when you're building, have to get plans submitted, you have to get permits, it should be with other things too. We already have. I thought we had an ordinance that people have to provide a property survey.
I think we do, and I think I heard someone saying that they were gonna be fined because they didn't do it.
Yeah, so my point is that we need to have a body of concerned citizens, not to be judging, not to be dictating to. I don't want to do that. I didn't enjoy that. I was the one on the DRB that said, we gotta fix this, because we can't dictate the color of the windows and the size of the windows and that type of thing. So I'm just saying, I felt far more comfortable knowing that we were going in a direction that was correcting those problems. And I spent, because I was on the DRB, I was happy that we were asked by Ben Templeton to make changes in how we were doing things. I'm just saying, I think it's time we revisit that. And in all honesty, there has not been legal difficulties because of the design review.
I'm sorry, I have to stop this conversation. That's gone way, we're not talking about the design review
Okay,
board.
you're right.
You were not on
Let's just go-
council when any of that was happening, so.
Well, I was on the design review board.
You were not on council when any of that was happening, so if legal situations were presented to the village, that was not shared with the design review board. So, this conversation was about trees, and now we've gone to buildings, and now we've
Well-
gone back to the design review board. So, moving forward, I think it's important to have a conversation about this. As I said, it will be on a future agenda. We are going to talk about this. We all feel strongly about the trees and all of that. We all moved to this village. I don't live in another community. I live here, and I moved here on purpose, just like everybody else has. So we all care about the trees. And so moving forward, we will have conversations about this, but as Kurt was saying, you know, we do have to recognize that people have property rights. And I know there are emotions and feelings and strong opinions on what's done on somebody's property, but we, as a legal entity, need to make sure that we are not crossing over into the opinion realm, that we are staying in our lane. And that is why we will have further conversation about this. We'll get out the ordinance, we'll talk about it, we'll talk about where we can go, maybe we can tweak some things, maybe we can't. But, you know, I do respect the fact that the homeowner is planting way more trees than we're taking down. So let's all just, like, take a minute, take a breath, and let the project play out. There's nothing we can do now. We can't replant those trees and see where we're gonna go from here. Like I said, we will have further conversations about this in the future, for sure. That was your public comment, or your
I'm
trustee
done.
comment time.
Yeah, I'm done.
I have no further comments. I need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourns 8:29.